Here's a strange question. Why do some of the most polite, well-behaved people in your life make you quietly uneasy? Not because they've done anything wrong, because something about their niceness feels performed. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who spent his career studying the unconscious mind, had an answer for this. And it's one of the most useful psychological ideas most people have never properly learned. The concept of the shadow. The shadow isn't a metaphor for being evil. It's a specific, well-documented pattern in how personality forms, and once you understand it, you'll start noticing it everywhere, in your relationships, in your own behavior, and in the parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. Jung's theory works like this. As children, we learn which traits get us love and approval, and which traits get us punished or rejected. The approved traits become our persona, the self we present to the world. The rejected traits don't vanish. They get pushed into the unconscious, where Jung said they form the shadow. This isn't automatically about dark impulses like violence. It can be anger, ambition, selfishness, sexuality, even confidence. Anything a child's environment taught them was unacceptable. The shadow is simply the sum of what you learn to disown. Here's the part that matters. Disowned traits don't disappear. They resurface in disguised forms. Jealousy gets relabeled as concern. Control gets relabeled as care. A need for power gets relabeled as just wanting what's fair. This isn't lying. It's a genuine blind spot. The mind protects your self-image before it protects the truth, so the reinterpretation happens automatically, without you noticing. Psychologists describe a related concept called projection. When we can't tolerate a trait in ourselves, we become unusually sensitive to it in other people. This is why the trait that irritates you most in someone else is worth examining. Not always. Sometimes a flaw is just a flaw, but disproportionate irritation is often a signal. You can also see the shadow in overreactions. A calm person who suddenly explodes, someone who claims total honesty but bristles the moment they're questioned, someone who insists they're just supportive but goes quiet whenever a friend succeeds. None of this means these people are frauds. It means the trait they've suppressed, envy, competitiveness, anger, is leaking out sideways because it was never consciously processed. Jung's warning was specific. Repression doesn't make a trait weaker. It makes it unsupervised. A person who has never consciously acknowledged their own capacity for cruelty or selfishness is, ironically, more likely to act on it because they've never built the self-awareness to catch themselves doing it. There's a well-studied phenomenon in family and relationship psychology called homeostasis, the tendency of a social group to resist any member changing, because change disrupts the group's balance. It explains something a lot of people experience but rarely have language for. You get healthier, more confident, or set better boundaries, and instead of being celebrated, you get subtle pushback. Sharper jokes, quieter support, a friend who mysteriously drifts. This usually isn't malice, it's discomfort. Your change implicitly raises a question the other person hasn't asked themselves yet, and most people would rather keep things familiar than confront that question. Understanding this doesn't mean assuming the worst of everyone who reacts oddly to your growth. It means recognizing the pattern so it doesn't derail you, and so you don't mistake someone's discomfort for evidence that you did something wrong. Jung was especially cautious around people who insisted they had no dark side at all. Not because goodness is fake, but because an identity built entirely on being the nice one or the moral one leaves no room to notice your own mistakes, which means those mistakes go unmonitored. This connects to something researchers in social psychology have found repeatedly. Situational pressure changes behavior far more than most people expect. Studies on obedience, conformity, and bystander behavior have shown that ordinary, decent people can act against their own values when the environment removes accountability. This doesn't mean everyone is secretly a monster. It means moral behavior isn't purely a fixed personality trait. It's also a product of environment, incentive, and self-awareness. People who assume they're immune to bad behavior are often the ones with the least practice noticing their own warning signs. Jung's proposed solution wasn't to eliminate the shadow. He thought that was impossible and even undesirable, since traits like anger and ambition serve real protective functions. His solution was integration, consciously acknowledging a trait instead of denying it, so it stays under your control instead of running your behavior from behind the scenes. In practice, that looks like a few concrete habits. First, when you notice a strong emotional reaction to someone, especially irritation that feels bigger than the situation, ask what specifically is bothering you and whether that trait shows up in you in a different form. Second, get comfortable naming your own less flattering motives out loud, even just to yourself. I'm not helping this person purely out of generosity. Part of me wants to be needed. That sentence doesn't make you a bad person. It makes the motive visible, which is the only way to actually manage it. Third, notice your reaction to your own success. Discomfort with being seen or guilt after setting a boundary is often a leftover rule from childhood about which traits were allowed. Naming that rule is the first step to updating it. The core idea here isn't that people are secretly terrible. It's that self-awareness is a skill, not a personality type. And most of us are running on autopilot more than we'd like to admit. The traits you've disowned don't make you worse than anyone else. Everyone has a shadow. The difference is whether you know yours well enough to keep it from steering. It's worth saying clearly, this is one influential psychological framework, not settled scientific fact. Jung's ideas are widely discussed but also debated among modern psychologists. Treat it as a useful lens, not a verdict on human nature. If this gave you a new way to think about a relationship or a habit of your own, that's the point of shadow work. Not to make you suspicious of everyone around you, but to make you a little more honest with yourself. If you want to go deeper into how Jung's ideas apply to modern relationships, let me know in the comments. That might be the next video.